I've played a bit of RimWorld in my day, and so, like many people, I was pretty interested to see what the newly announced DLC was going to bring. RimWorld has a history of relatively good DLCs that are generally well received, but it seems like more than in the past, RimWorld Anomaly has got a bit of a mixed reception right now, and I just wanted to take a second and see if maybe I could help explain what's going on with that. So let's start our story here. So this is the Steam page for RimWorld, and we can see that it is overwhelmingly positive recent reviews, and all reviews are overwhelmingly positive. That's pretty good. This game has been on Steam for years. To maintain that high of a rating is great. I think any game developer would be very happy with that. Side note, people who complain that the game never goes on sale, act now. It's on sale. The game is well liked by its community. It's had longevity. It's years of updates. We can look at the older DLC. So the first DLC that came out was Royalty. It is rated very positive, very positive. Next up came Ideology, mostly positive and very positive. And the previous DLC to Anomaly was Biotech, very positive, very positive. I think the general sentiment from the community is that overall the DLCs are decent. I would say that when people are giving advice to a new player, they said the DLCs aren't required, but they're pretty good. You probably don't need Royalty. And we're going to circle back around to Royalty and how this ties in with Anomaly in a moment. The community is pretty happy with the game. The games have reviewed pretty darn well. If we look at the Steam chart, so I have this all. Now, of note here, RimWorld started off not on Steam. So the game was in alpha/beta before it was on here. But you can see it was released right here on Steam on October 17th in 2018. And generally speaking, the game has grown. It's pretty stable between expansions, a little bit of extra growth here between Ideology and Biotech, but it's still holding pretty good. So I'm looking at the most recent data, over 31,000 people still playing. We had a peak of over 60,000. We're getting quite a lot of interest every time a DLC comes out. So this is a very, very healthy Steam chart for a game that's been out for so long. And even though the growth hasn't been huge since Biotech came out, it's still maintained a very healthy population of people playing the game. So why are we seeing so many posts on Steam, on Reddit, in various Discord communities, people I've spoken to? The reception here has kind of been or even maybe a little bit of worried. So I pulled up some examples here. These are all just from the Steam forums. Now, note, these are just examples. They are cherry-picked out from what's there, so feel free to go there and check them out yourself. So I just want to show there is a whole gambit here. So here's somebody that's very excited. They're very positive about this. They like the idea. Here's a person that's questioning, I don't get the negativity about the upcoming expansion. And I'm going to quote this user here. They say, I'm going to be honest, it feels to me like Biotech raised the bar and added so many major mechanics, and that is the only reason people are upset. We don't know how many expansions RimWorld will get during its lifetime, but they cannot all be Biotech. I think that this new expansion is going to add major threats to the late game that aren't just massive raids, will be good for the game. So their theory is Biotech was so good that almost anything that had to follow that would kind of let people down some. Thoughts on Anomaly? Okay, this person had some pretty good reasoning here. I want to specifically call out their second and third points. Secondly, I really hope they add an option to disable the Anomaly content in the Colony Creator like they did with the Ideologian system. Anomaly, from what has been shown, seems like it would make RimWorld a lot more stressful and tense, much more things to watch out for. So I'd be more than happy to see an option to create colonies specifically for the DLC without having to go into settings and disable the entire DLC every time I don't want to play with the new content. Thirdly, and that ties into my second point a bit, I really, really hope that they won't go too overboard with the intensity of events. I want to see some tense experiences, not losing half my colony to something I couldn't have predicted or done anything about. I think this is voicing the concern that Many people play RimWorld very differently. Some people play RimWorld to play house. Some people play RimWorld to be a war crime simulator. Some people play it almost like a 4X. I mean, with mods, this game can be many, many things to many, many people. So, of course, adding any DLC is going to have different groups of people excited or concerned about that. But I think they hit on a really strong point here. And again, I'm going to relate this back to royalty here in a second. So keep this in mind, the idea of toggling off parts of the game. Here's another well thought out post. And I'm not going to read from this one, but I just wanted to show this has 65 comments on it, and it's not a super old thread. So again, this is a pretty hot topic in the community. Anomaly new DLC changes the game too much. Okay, so now this is a concern that RimWorld started out as a sci-fi western a la Westwood or Firefly. And as it's grown, it's added in more fantastical sci-fi elements like the mechanoids, etc. So they're worried that maybe like we're getting mission creep or we're drifting away from the themes. And finally, I want to bring it to this one. Anomaly DLC, a different kind of DLC. Again, they make great reasoned out points, but I specifically want to call out their bad. I can absolutely see this DLC potentially feeling much smaller than something like Biotech. That being said, we have no idea what is encompassed by this DLC yet. So they're saying, like, you know, again, Biotech was so good, how could it possibly be like that? Okay, let's go back to royalty. The complaint about royalty has always been it's something that you don't use in every game. The main selling point was that there's this stellar monarchy and you can gain titles. I think most players probably have played a game or two, or several games even, that they follow that storyline and they take it through to the ending. However, you probably don't do that every game. I know when I play RimWorld, I generally do runs that are very themed. I mod my game pretty heavily, but even then, I have games where I heavily lean into royalty. I want people to gain titles, I'm trying to ally with people, I'm against the Empire, etc. So if I'm doing a run where it's relevant, it's really good, and it's great. But if I'm doing a run like, hey, I want to do a tribal run to space, maybe I don't even interact with those systems at all. Whereas in the other DLCs, if you're running ideology, you can run it in whatever type of run you're doing. It's very flexible, in fact. It's almost like a difficulty slider to the game even, depending on what kind of ideology you want to build. Biotech, even if I'm running a game where I'm not doing gene editing, or I'm playing a mechanator or a sanguiphage, kids can still show up. Even if I'm not doing a game that's playing house, I have kids that join me, I have refugee kids, I have kids that attack me. There's various story things that happen around it. And there's plenty of other content that even if I'm not engaging in the bullet points of the DLC, I can still experience and enrich my game. Okay, let's take a look at RimWorld Anomaly at the high level here. So Anomaly is a horror-based expansion. Okay, so right away, if I'm playing a game and I'm not interested in doing horror, like I just want to play Little House on the Prairie and I'm going to build a cabin and ranch some animals, this is only going to frustrate me because that's not the type of run that I want to do. Okay? They give some examples here. I'm not going to go through them, but they have various different influences from things like The Thing or et cetera, different sci-fi cosmic horror type things. A massive flesh creature, a psychically invisible hunter. How frustrated are you going to be when you're not playing a combat heavy game that you have a psychically invisible hunter kill your pawns? A parasite controls one of your colonists, but who? Okay, so you're playing a run and you've got like your favorite colonist, and in your mind this story is all about him, and then the game just says, nope, actually he's been taken over and he's gone now, and you couldn't have really prevented that. So you can see why this would cause people to worry some. Okay, so they talk about different ways to combat the horrors, they talk about capturing them. So this is a very popular thing within mods, is horror things. You see Cthulhu mods, SCP mods, werewolves, vampires, cultists. But the thing is, those were mods. So if I didn't want to play a game with Cthulhu monsters, I just didn't run the mod. Okay, so you say, okay, fine, fine. Don't buy the DLC. Well, the problem with that is, for a lot of people, RimWorld is kept alive by the mods. And while not every mod, of course, oftentimes large mods will borrow from mechanics in the DLCs and will require the DLC to run. Again, that's a concern. It's like, well, I don't want these things, but I'm feeling like I'm forced to pay for them anyways. And they talk about escalating different threats and whatnot. So nothing on here, at least to me, jumps out as, oh, that'd be a cool mechanic when I'm gonna just do a tribal run and I just want to have like, how big can I make my clan before it all falls apart? Or, hey, I'm playing Desert Traders and I'm gonna caravan around and I want to do a bunch of trading and be like a merchant prince like run. This would just interrupt my run, right? The good news is, in all the other DLCs, there's been a triggering event. The Chased Noble or the Wrecked Mechanoid. And if you just avoid triggering the event, it doesn't start that type of content. So personally, I would be shocked if there's not some kind of trigger event here that will be relatively obvious to start these things happening. So that's my optimistic side. I think the reason that we're getting such a mixed reception from the new DLC is this worry that I'm going to have to pay for a DLC that I'm going to run once or twice on themed runs, and you'll probably enjoy it because the team here at Ludden Studios has done a great job. Though it'll probably be a couple fun runs, but how many times do you want a psychically invisible hunter to kill pawns? Or how many times do you want a parasite to control one of your colonists? I could see this wearing thin real fast. And like I said, relating this back to Royalty, which is the DLC that I feel like people care about the least. And it's because a big chunk of that DLC was very themed and you would only use it in very specific circumstances. So hopefully we will see in the coming dev releases, they're going to have more information come out over the next month before the DLC comes out for sure. Personally, I'm really hoping that we see some other things. The reception to the 1.5 free patch has been excellent. People are very happy with the changes and a couple of the new things that are coming. I really hope that some more is added here that would apply to other types of runs. And unfortunately, if you look at the bulleted points on other DLCs, you could see that here. So I don't know why this type of thing wouldn't have been put up on the main page. You can see all these different things that they're bullet pointed out. And when we go to Anomaly, it's all just about things that are going to kill my colonists, basically. Hopefully they surprise us. If any team can pull it off, I have confidence that this team can do it. And I'd be curious to see what other people are feeling. Are you falling on the, I'm super excited for my SCP containment facility to go awry? Are you worried that every game is just going to be a zombie apocalypse when that's not what you're trying to do? Yeah, we'll see if the reception changes as more information comes out. If the SteamDB graph is anything to go by, then I'm sure the game will do just fine. I mean, we're on trajectory to pop maybe even 100,000 if this one sells really well. Maybe that's a little optimistic, but the trend is definitely positive. So we'll see what happens here, and I'd be curious to see what other people think, because never before have I seen this much pessimism before a DLC release, and it's only going to be about a month. So this isn't like we're 6 months or a year out from release. It's coming very soon, and hopefully it'll be a success and it will make people happy. And if it doesn't, hopefully it'll allow some really cool mods that will make people happy. All right, if you've enjoyed this one, builders, I'd appreciate if you'd leave me a like. That lets me know that you're interested in this type of content. And if you're interested in other things, right now the channel mainly has Dominion 6 content on it. Very cool game if you don't know what it is. And if you do know what it is, you should definitely check it out because people have really been enjoying it. All right, take care, and I look forward to seeing the conversation below.